I know, I just released a D&D video and it did really well, and I should probably stay with the hype, but I think it's time to go back to why I made this channel in the first place, mostly because I feel bad about putting a lot of the same kind of video in a row out at the same time, and I have the personal need to switch it up often, but let's just ignore that. If you haven't been a part of this channel for very long, or like me have been and forgot that this is why I made the channel in the first place, I have been slowly redrawing a bunch of OCs that I made as a kid in middle school or around that age, and this is my 8th video in my Redraws series, and the 7th video specifically about redrawing characters from this big map that my mom definitely didn't have to tell me to stop taking printer paper for. And today you get not one, but 2 different characters, so let's get into it. Remember how I said at the start of this video that this isn't about D&D? Well, I'm about to talk about D&D again. Last week I drew my D&D party and it was a really fun time. Now, DMing is hard, and one of the players, Volkmar actually, had previously DM'd and agreed to trade DMing responsibilities every couple of weeks to sort of act as a preventative measure for DM burnout or to cover for the other if there was a day that they couldn't DM. And I promise this is relevant to the blue people that are appearing on your screen. For this new campaign, there was sort of a unique character building method. Our character's race and class were randomly decided by a spinning wheel, and our stats were more or less equal to our own in real life. Needless to say, as a 5-foot-tall person with exercise-induced asthma and who has spilled at least once at every single meal she has sat down at, my strength, constitution, and dexterity are absolutely dismal. But the details of that are kind of beside the point. I rolled a Triton character, which is super cool because that's not really a race I've ever played or even really thought about playing before. Consequently, I have been spending the entire week thinking about drawing Triton characters. I didn't feel like I could do another drawing my D&D party video directly after the last one. I might do one in the future. However, I did remember that in middle school I had drawn these 2 lake monster Triton type characters, and I figured that I could satisfy my desires to draw fish ladies this way. These characters are Pisces and Scaelli. Super original names, I know. Unlike modern day Lady Splitchin, Baby Splitchin had only so much capacity for creating backstories, and also was far more interested in character design than anything, so unfortunately yet again in the series I don't have an interesting backstory that I came up with at the time that I can relate to you. However, I can do my best to create a sort of inspired backstory from what I remember and retroactively insert it into the world. As you can see, more so than usual in my redraw videos, I am taking a lot more creative liberties when designing these characters. For Pisces' design, I'm completely changing her body type, her color scheme, and her outfit, which pretty much makes her an entirely different character. That's because I distinctly remember when creating Pisces that for one reason or another, I only had a few colored pencils with me and they were all blue. And this was sort of a make what character I can out of the supplies I have situation. So now that I have more color and knowledge and art ability available to me, I want to depict that in a fun lake fishy girl. As for Scaelli, the new design you'll see more of later in the video, her original design was pretty much a ripoff of Laguna Blue from Monster High, so I wanted to try and create a more distinct character instead. Pisces is pretty much an entirely self-indulgent character design. I wanted to do a super cute multicolor fish character, and it was very important to me that I got to draw a character with a softer, less toned body type. I myself am not the most slender of people, so it's honestly good practice for me to see my own characteristics reflected in the characters that I create, especially characters that I would personally regard as very attractive. Pisces, I imagine, is a lake creature that doesn't really like doing lake creature things. She loves being able to dry her hair out and braid it and curl it and do it up in all sorts of fancy looks. I imagine she loves layering her clothing and wearing heavy sweaters and lots of skirts and scarves. All of these things would be much more enjoyable on land, but under the water only so much before things get tedious and annoying. I do imagine if she were a D&D character, she probably has water-based druidic powers and is very talented at using them. I always imagine underwater Triton, mermaid, lake monster type societies to be very athletic and competition-centered. I'm not sure why, but I imagine that Pisces is not particularly athletically gifted, so she has spent her time honing and perfecting her druidic abilities, partially in a way to prove to herself her worth to society, but partially because being able to manipulate water makes it so much easier to achieve the hair and clothing looks that she wants. And of course, because she's a druid, obligatory staff with coral and barnacles growing on it, even though coral and barnacles are definitely saltwater creatures and Pisces and Scaelli 100% are freshwater creatures. Just pretend it makes sense. Speaking of fish, I have finally put a fish into my new aquarium. In some of my older videos, I mentioned putting together a planted aquarium, and I've been letting it establish itself for a couple of weeks. I did find that the Java moss that I put in it is growing a lot faster than any of the other plants, so I need to go in from time to time and trim it to make sure it doesn't crowd out the light too much, but that shouldn't be a big deal. I can just do it when I do water changes or as needed. As you can see in the center of the tank, there is a tree that has been constructed out of driftwood. Even after a week of soaking the pieces of wood in hot boiling water, I was not able to get all of the tannins out. As long as I keep an eye on the pH levels, that's actually fine. Tannins just kind of turn the water brown and in fact are really great for betta fish. Tannins help reduce stress, they have antibacterial properties, and betta fish prefer a dark environment anyways, so I guess bonus strategy for introducing my new fish to his new tank. This is our new fish. He is a betta with koi patterning, and we bought him from a local aquarium store. I gotta say, I was kind of disappointed in the store. I expected a dedicated fish and aquarium store to keep their bettas better than like a local grocery store or whatever, and honestly there wasn't really much of a difference. In fact, it felt kind of worse because the betta fish were displayed in plastic cups on a very precarious shelf that literally anyone could bump into, and I'm sure that they're only kept in plastic cups for display and sale purposes and probably are kept in much nicer conditions in the back, but like a lot of the betta were still pale and really sickly looking. We did buy a betta anyways because I had specifically prepped my tank for a betta fish, and the other fish in the store also seemed to be kept in relatively good conditions, so I felt like it wasn't so bad to buy from them. But I still felt kind of guilty because I was specifically interested in this really small fish because he was extremely pale and he had a torn fin, and I wanted to see him heal and I wanted to see him get more vibrant. Honestly, because betta breeders are pretty irresponsible, getting a sickly looking betta isn't always the best option, and you really want to look for a fish that's active, but I just really wanted to see this little guy have a better quality of life, and even if he wasn't going to live long, at least I would know that I did my best to make the end of his life comfortable, and that's what I wanted to do. Luckily, he seems to be doing really well in his new tank, and it might just be me, but I feel like his colors have already brightened up so much since we got him, and it's only been a couple of days. So fingers crossed that our little guy turns out okay. His name is Noodles. He is named after the guy from The Offspring who has a really fun hair. And then we also bought 4 white Corridoras for our shrimp tank, and they don't have names because I cannot tell them apart, but they do make our shrimp tank look a lot more lively, which is super great. As you can see, I have moved on to working on Scaelli, Pisces' younger sister. You may be like, they look nothing alike. Why is the younger sister taller? Blah blah blah. I'm the middle child of 2 sisters, and first of all, my younger sister is at least half a foot taller than me, and second of all, me and my sisters all have very different body compositions and shapes, and my husband and his brothers share almost no physical traits in common despite having the same parents, so there's that. I did give both of the girls webbed feet as per the original drawing, but I did not do the arm fins, mostly because I forgot, and I really worked hard on giving Pisces the sheer shirt with big sleeves, so was I about to go and do all that just for some accuracy? Ha ha ha, no. Scaelli I drew with more consideration for what a competitive swimmer would look like, with the broad shoulders and a more muscular toned body, and a very stiff pose that she's probably used to standing in for team pictures. I gave her much more angular features, but also gave her scaly spots much like she has in her original drawing, and to sort of match her sister. I decided to give Scaelli a short wolf cut with these long braids in the front of her ear fin thingies. I imagine Pisces begged Scaelli to get this haircut and braid Scaelli's hair like this every single morning. Even though I think Pisces would be fairly confident in herself and her own clothing and design choices, she loves to dress up Scaelli as well and sort of lives vicariously through her when it comes to certain clothings, makeup looks, and haircuts. For example, you won't see it until later in the drawing, but Scaelli has several piercings and wears a gold chain. I imagine that Pisces has a texture thing with jewelry or is scared of getting her ears pierced or something like that, and Scaelli, who could not care less, gets her ears pierced and wears jewelry so that whenever Pisces finds cute jewelry or earrings, Scaelli can wear it for her. I feel like there is probably a 4-year difference between Scaelli and Pisces, and now they both live together in Monster Town, sharing an apartment with separate goals. Scaelli is most certainly well on her way to becoming a professional athlete, and Pisces honestly is probably a woman in STEM. I'm not exactly sure what degree she might have gotten, but I feel like her life goal is to change the limitations of style for underwater folk, so maybe she works with Cleopatra on inventing a new textile for garments, or just straight up having a lab of her own. I did want to thank you all for supporting me no matter what videos have been coming out lately. I'm not sure why, I'm just going to assume it's an algorithm thing, but I had 3 or 4 videos recently that just did incredibly poorly, and I kept putting more energy and effort to try and get something creative out, and I couldn't for the life of me figure out what was going wrong. And I know in the grand scheme of what is almost 40 videos at this point, 3 or 4 videos doing poorly doesn't seem like a huge deal, but if you put it into perspective, that's a month plus of my channel stagnating where I got very little interaction and for the first time actually started losing followers despite my content not really changing a whole lot. At least I didn't think so. So that was an incredibly disheartening period of time, but my last video did very well and we seem to be getting back into the realm of suggested videos, and I just wanted to thank the new followers for finding me and keeping that boost going, and all the followers who have stuck around and continued to comment and support me even when things were starting to look rough. You are all incredibly amazing, and I'm just so lucky to have such a kind and wonderful group of people backing me and encouraging me. And on that very sentimental note, here are our sisters. Also, I am so sorry for anyone who noticed how badly I struggled to spell Pisces, and I would like to formally apologize to all the Pisceses out there who are literally out here having their birthdays right now, or like last week, or in the next 2 weeks. Also, don't come for me for how I say Pisces. I don't know what I'm doing. But anyways, look at these fish babes. They look really cool. And this 100% helped with my itch to draw Triton characters. I definitely have plans to add more Triton characters to my repertoire when it comes to my campaign book, but ooh, secrets for the very far future. But yeah, I'm hoping that you all had a great week. Happy March. It's March now, which is wild to think about. And yeah, be kind to betta fish and all kinds of fish. They're good little creatures. Little fishing never hurt anybody, I think, but who knows? Not me.